Hi, welcome to Movies Moment. Today we are going to explain a movie called Upside Down Magic. Spoilers ahead. Subscribe if you like this and catch us on the next one. Take care.
When she was very young, Nori felt different from other children. Unlike all her classmates, the girl had yet to find anything that made her special, until one day, something bizarre happened. At the age of 7, Nori was watching the neighbors from her bedroom window when she saw a kitten in the garden. At that moment, hair began to grow on her face and she transformed into a feline. When her father entered the room, wings sprouted from her back and Nori finally found what made her different from everyone else. Now Nori is a teenager and, after 6 long years of waiting, she and her best friend are going to Sage Academy, a famous magic school. Reina is able to control fire and, despite being very powerful, her low self-confidence sabotages her. However, her friend is always there to remind her how incredible she is and to extol her abilities. On the other hand, Nori has a hard time controlling her powers, and whenever she transforms into an animal, she ends up merging into several creatures at the same time. A few weeks later, the two girls join the other students at the Sage Academy and wait for a bus to take them to their future school. But instead, a strange guy comes out from behind a tree and tells them that he will guide the newcomers to the school. After saying goodbye to their parents, the young people enter the forest and follow the man on a trail. After a few minutes of walking, the group finds a portal and Bud is the first to go through. Nori and Reina follow and are followed by the rest of the group. Within the first few minutes, the students discover that their cell phones don't work at the school and, that same day, they meet the principal, Linda. The woman presents the 5 categories into which the newcomers will be divided based on their natural talents. The fuzzies are the group of students who can communicate with animals. The flickers can attract objects to their hands. The flares are those who can master the power of fire. The flyers are those who can float and, finally, the fluxers have the gift of transforming into any creature from the animal kingdom. Before starting classes, all students must take a placement test so that their skills can be assessed by their professors. The first to be tested are the flares, who have to light a candle that is 2 meters away, and Philip is the first to be evaluated. He then receives a card and the principal orders him to wait in the courtyard while the other students take the test. However, when it's Elliot's turn, the boy can't light the candle, because instead of flames, he releases a smokescreen and the professors consider him a lost cause. Finally, Reina introduces herself and proves to be the most powerful among her colleagues, as she manages to complete the test using only her little finger. Next, the fuzzies are assessed and the students have to ask a dog questions. At the end of the quiz, the student passes if they get all the answers right. When it's the flicker's turn, the youngsters have to lure a ceramic vase into their hands and a new faulty magic is identified. Instead of attracting it, Pepper ends up repelling the object and throwing it at the wall, which causes her to be immediately rejected. The way the professors assess the flyers is through a short flight, in which the students have to stay 1 meter above the ground for 30 seconds. However, when he takes off his backpack, which is full of extremely heavy stones, Andres quickly floats up to the ceiling and can't get down. As well as being disqualified, the boy gets stuck up there and has to be rescued. Finally, Fluxers must transform into a spotted cat and maintain this appearance for 6 seconds before returning to their human form. However, when Nori enters the room and transforms, bat wings begin to appear on her back in less than 2 seconds, which startles all the professors. When she realizes that she has completely lost control of her powers, the girl returns to her human form and receives an envelope like all the other freshmen. At the end of the exam, the students gather in the courtyard to open their cards and find out where they have been allocated. At this point, Reina learns that she has been accepted into the Flares group, but Nori is not sent to the Fluxers. Instead, the young woman finds the acronym UDM on her card and wonders what that category is. The principal then orders the students to go to the cafeteria to pick up their uniforms, except for Nori, who will have to follow a forest trail to reach her destination. At this point, the two friends part and wish each other good luck. When she arrives at the UDM headquarters, the young woman is greeted by Bud and enters an underground shelter. When she enters the classroom, she meets the other students who have failed their tests and discovers that she has been sent to the Misfits Club. There, young people are not allowed to study magic and all their lessons are the same as those taught in any school. Upon hearing this, Nori is furious and asks why they can't practice like the other teenagers at the academy. Suddenly, Linda appears and explains that the UDM was created to receive students with upside-down magic. According to the principal, they will never learn to use their powers in the right way. So they have to stay at school and wait until their abilities disappear before they can return to society as a normal person. The woman explains that magic is like a muscle. If you don't use it, it gets weaker until it disappears completely. For several years, Sage treated the UDMs like any other student. However, in 1939, a boy called Reginald Roberts changed the school's policy. Thanks to his upside-down magic, Reginald has become the ideal host for shadow magic, which exists for the sole purpose of creating chaos. To prevent their world from being destroyed, the professors and students at Sage joined forces to eliminate the monster and narrowly succeeded in preventing a great tragedy. Fortunately, shadow magic doesn't work without a human host and, according to the director, the UDMs are its only target. For this reason, these young people have to be isolated from the others and forbidden to practice magic until their powers disappear. That same day, the other students are sent to their respective classes and Reina learns that, in a few weeks' time, the annual Founders' Day will take place. During the celebration, 5 freshmen will perform and the professor of each category will select the 2 best first-year students to take part in a competition. Then, the winner of each class will make a presentation to the founders and all the current members of the academy. After being bombarded with this information, the newcomers receive their first lesson in argon. The Flare's professor challenges Reina to use her power to turn corn into popcorn. Despite her nervousness, the young woman manages to carry out her mission with excellence until she hears Philip making fun of her performance. At that moment, all of Reina's insecurity takes over and she ends up incinerating her popcorn. While the girl is being scolded by her professor, Chandra, a second grader, is standing outside watching with a smile on her face. The next morning, Bud invites his students to an outdoor class and tells them he has a surprise for them. When he opens the shed doors, Nori sees some brooms and is extremely excited at the idea of being able to use them to fly. However, after taking quite a tumble, the young girl discovers that these are just normal brooms, which they have to use to clean the schoolyard. While at work, the young woman takes the opportunity to attend the classes of her fellow Fluxers and realizes that Professor Han has taught them a lesson. Unlike the previous task, where students could transform themselves into any spotted cat, this time they have to transform themselves into a specific kitty. While snooping around, Nori discovers that the annual Founders' Day will soon take place and one of her colleagues will have the opportunity to take part. At that moment, she sees an opportunity to be heard by the other academy leaders and decides to train her skills to fix her magic. The young girl then makes an excuse to get closer to the class so that she can see the kitten up close. This way, she is able to analyze its characteristics well enough to reproduce them in front of the whole school. However, once again, her powers sabotage her and Nori is transformed into a bizarre creature. Immediately, Professor Han calls Bud and asks him to control his students, because the principal will be furious if she finds out what has happened. When lunchtime arrives, all the students gather in the cafeteria and Nori tells them that she has drawn every detail of the cat that Professor Han was holding. Now all she needs to do is practice her skills. Seeing her best friend on the other side of the cafeteria, Reina gets up and walks towards her, but is scolded again by Miss Argon and goes back to sit with her class. After popping all the popcorn kernels with his powers, Philip is elected the best student in the class and the professor orders Reina to challenge him. Despite succeeding in her task, the young girl's popcorn is a little burnt and, once again, Argon is disappointed with her pupil's performance. During the break, Reina is walking alone through the corridors when Chandra approaches and praises the girl's great power. Before saying goodbye, Chandra says that if one day Reina wants to extend her abilities even further, she can help her. Determined to become the best student in her class, Reina stays up late studying in the library and, when she goes to put a book away, another black-covered book falls off the shelf. When she picks it up, the girl discovers that it is the Manual of Shadow Magic and decides to take a look at what is written inside. But when Reina opens the book, the lights go out and she realizes what a big mistake she has made. After putting it back on the bookshelf, the young woman picks up her things to return to her room and realizes that the book has started chasing her. Meanwhile, Nori is at the boarding house with her misfit friends who help her time how long she can keep the appearance of a feline. Despite her constant training routine, she can't go more than 3 seconds without her body taking on the shape of several animals at once. The next day, after seeing Nori with her new friends through the window, Reina is saddened to think that her best friend doesn't miss her and suddenly the Shadow Magic Manual appears on her bed. At this point, the pages begin to turn by themselves until they reach a specific chapter, which teaches the user how to manifest their untapped powers. When she decides to read what is written in that book, a black cloud forms around Reina and invades her body. Hours later, all the freshmen gather to watch the competition of the 2 best students in each class and the Flares start the contest. Philip is convinced that it will be easy to win that duel, but to his surprise, Reina manages to pop all the corn kernels in record time. When she tastes the popcorn, Professor Argon feels proud and the girl is chosen to represent her class at the annual Founders' Day. Just then, Nori appears and says that she has been practicing her skills in order to fix her magic. The young girl then asks for another chance to prove her potential and turns into a striped cat. Meanwhile, Professor Han is timing the girl, but when she reaches 4 seconds, wings appear on her back again and Nori loses control of her powers. Terrified, she transforms into all kinds of creatures and Reina tries to help her friend calm down. However, now that her magic is intensified, the young woman can't control it either and almost turns Nori into a barbecue. Reina quickly goes to apologize to her friend and Bud helps Nori up. Just then, he receives a scolding from the principal, who orders him to keep his students in line. Otherwise, he'll end up losing his job. When the group returns to the UDM headquarters, the young people are extremely sad because they have given up hope that they will ever learn to use their magic. Having been through this situation a few years ago, Bud feels sorry for them and says he needs to reveal something important to his students. When everyone is gathered in the forest, the man tells them that he has always hated his job and is tired of seeing the UDM students have their dreams crushed. So he decides to help those young people embrace their unique abilities and learn to get the best out of them. At that moment, Bud begins to sing and uses the lyrics of his songs to communicate with the animals in the forest. When they discover that their professor is in UDM of the fuzzy category, the teenagers feel relieved because they realize that they are not alone. Unlike other people who communicate with animals, Bud can only talk to them through music and, even though he hasn't been trained by the Sage Academy, his magic hasn't disappeared. In order not to lose his magic, the man continued practicing it on the sly and promised that, from the following morning, he would teach the quartet to do the same. While returning to the lodge, Nori reflects on what happened earlier and comes to the conclusion that there is something wrong with Reina's magic, so she decides to visit her to find out why. When she enters her room, Reina finds Chandra with the manual in her hands and discovers that her powers have been intensified thanks to that book. Furious at having risked hurting her best friend, the girl orders Chandra to leave and take that manual with her. However, when the girl leaves, the book returns to her room and Reina is furious. When she opens the door, she finds Nori and hugs her. However, so that her friend doesn't find out anything about the shadow manual, Reina has to kick her out. As promised, the next morning Bud begins training his team and helps Andres control the height he wants to float. After tying a hose around his body, the boy takes his backpack off his back and floats up to the treetops. However, he is still unable to drop down on his own. In the course of the training, the young people begin to accept their abilities as they really are, without wanting to make them the same as others. During the lessons, the group begins to form closer bonds and, little by little, they learn to control their magic. Elliot discovers how to shape his smoke and Pepper becomes able to throw any object as far as she wants. Furthermore, Nori stops trying to transform herself into a single animal and accepts her incredible ability to merge the most diverse creatures into her body. While watching her classmates having fun, Reina is once again approached by Chandra and orders her to leave her alone. However, as the girl has already used the book, the two are now united. During the discussion, the other youngsters ask who Reina is talking to, at which point the girl discovers that she is the only one who can see Chandra. Immediately, she runs to her room and Chandra bothers her again. She knows that Reina has no idea of the extent of her powers and claims that her magic is much stronger than that of any of her colleagues. Deluded by the possibility of abandoning all her insecurities to access the true potential of her powers, Reina ends up giving herself over to the magic of the shadows. When Nori finds her, she realizes that her friend has been possessed and discovers that the UDMs are not the only targets of that evil spirit. The creature then reveals that the whole school will soon be destroyed and Nori must flee so as not to become the first victim. The girl quickly returns to the camp and tells her professor what happened. At this point, Nori's classmates intend to take action and reveal the truth to the principal. However, Bud says that Linda will not believe this story and asks his students to wait until the next day, as he is convinced that the spirit plans to act during the founder's ceremony. On the morning of the event, all the students and professors gather in the garden and Linda invites Reina to go on stage and give her presentation. At that moment, the young woman remains seated and gives just one demonstration of her great power. She then stands up and says that she has prepared something even more impressive for that special day. Suddenly, a giant fireball emerges from her hands and its shadow spreads across the garden. Then a frightening voice breaks into the room and announces that, after so many years, he is finally back. Upon hearing this, the professors discover that this is the same spirit that possessed Reginald decades ago, and then they realize that shadow magic doesn't only attack UDMs. In an attempt to stop the monster, Argon and her students team up to launch a giant fireball, but the demon remains unharmed. At the request of the principal, the Fuzzies call the birds of prey to help them in the battle, but the animals are frightened at the sight of the monster and quickly flee. So the Fluxers need to transform to attack him, but their animal forms are completely harmless. When all seemed lost and all alternative attacks had been exhausted, The UDM appeared and Pepper drove the creature away while Elliot created a smokescreen to blind it. Soon afterwards, Andres baits the monster and distracts it so that Nori can take it down. When the demon is on the ground, Linda orders everyone to unite their powers to destroy it, but Nori prevents anyone from getting close. The girl knows that the monster is actually her best friend, so she risks her own life to help Reina take control. Just as Nori was about to be attacked, a fireball emerged from inside the creature and managed to destroy it. Seeing that her friend is free of shadow magic, Nori feels relieved and hugs Reina. After Sage Academy was saved by the UDMs, many changes took place and the UDM program was cancelled. Now, the UDMs study alongside the other students in their class and learn to control their unique magic. Once again, Bud has been promoted and has become the Fuzzy's official professor. Unlike before, the tables in the cafeteria are no longer separated into categories and young people are free to cultivate friendships with students from all groups.